And Rex is like, if he's dead, I'll deal with it then. But I
Yeah.
don't believe he is. He has unwavering faith that Echo's alive, and I love that. Uh, how did you feel? And even Hunter eventually came around and was like, "Yeah, I hope you find what you're looking for, Captain." Before they infiltrated the actual city, how did you feel about the continuing uh, relationship between the Bad Batch and Rex in this episode?
Yeah, I didn't know that there would be this much, and in fact, I was actually surprised by the amount that Hunter does. I, I wasn't surprised by Crosshair because we see what he did in the last episode, firing things up, around the campfire, with the regs. So I wasn't surprised to see him giving Rex a hard time, but I guess I didn't really think Hunter would. I thought he was kind of the leader, more of a calm. Uh, I don't know if I'd say cool and collected, but I mean, he's a bad batcher, so he's ready to rock and roll. But I was a little bit surprised by that. Um, uh, but again, it brings attention, and it helps with the story in terms of having hope in something that seems like a long shot. And I started thinking about when you see Wat Tambor come on the screen, and say, your friend is, dead, his mind is ours. And I love that, Rex points right at the screen and says, I'm not leaving without my friend. And I freaking love that. I really love Rex's stance. And even Filoni talked about that a bit, the number of losses he's had with Heavy and Fives. And of course, he thought Echo as well. And so to get one of those guys back is just incredible. But ultimately, the Bad Batch is there to help them, and they
Mm-hmm.
do. They do. They give him grief, but they help him.
Oh, absolutely. And I would even go a step further. He's even dealing with the loss of Ahsoka as well. Because by this point, Ahsoka's walked away.
Oh, good point, buddy.
So loss has been an issue for Rex. And it definitely is, to have that glimmer of hope that Echo's alive, I think is what he's clinging to. He needs it to be true. For his, I mean, just for his belief's sake, he needs it to be true. Which is why I love that opening card so much, and I forget what they call it every time. I don't know why.
No, I'm saying you called it an opening card. I hear different podcasts call it different things. I know that it's always been called the fortune cookie.
That's it, fortune cookie.
Yeah.
I always forget the word fortune cookie, but the opening card, the fortune cookie, whatever. I love it for this episode because it says the search for truth begins with belief, and that's exactly what we're seeing played out. Rex has a belief. Echo is alive. Echo is alive. So we're going to go in pursuit of the truth. Is he alive or isn't he? And we find out at the end of the episode it's questionable. Is he truly alive? Or was it the machines keeping him alive? Because we see him, he looks like he just got spit out of the Matrix. Um, I mean, he looks like Keanu Reeves with all the wires and everything coming up out of him at the opening scene of the Matrix. And we see that in with Echo, and his mind's not all there. And you see him when he gets out, he's like, I just remember being on trying to get to the shuttle to escape the Citadel, which of course we know that's where he is supposedly was killed. And it's just, and Rex is like, I'm here, and he's like, you came back for me, and he's like, of course. He's like, and it's very it's very worrisome. I want to say it was very moving, but at the same time, for me, it's very worrisome because how alive is he truly?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Um, yeah, I saw Joel Aaron, or no, it was Keith
Keith,
Kellogg, right? Keith
yeah,
Kellogg, right? The animation director for, this show, and he did it for Rebels, um, he was talking about how when they have Echo come out of that chamber, that his eyes are moving like, he's still, processing information and data. So yeah, you do wonder. But the responses that he has to him towards the end of the episode seemed that he was kind of coming up out of that. He was literally talking from the last, memory he had, which was that explosion there on the Citadel. And of course, I mentioned last episode that I went back and watched all three of those. Didn't really remember that Echo was killed there. There's so many episodes, and going back now, I'm getting a lot more of it in my head. But I thought it was so neat. I hope it's the case that he is back. I mean, I know his, he has one arm, one is gone, and then both legs are gone. He's got prosthetics in place of that. But I hope that he does. And I don't know. I'm curious to see this next episode again. Fortunately, I don't remember it from the story reels. But obviously, the show closes with Tech and Rex unhooking him.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully we'll see more of our guy of Echo.
Oh, definitely. I hope we do, because he's very. And I liked him earlier in the series when we had him around, but this is going to be one of those. It's going to be interesting to see how they progress. I've been watching the story reels because I have them, but I've only been watching them after the fact. I haven't been watching the. I've been watching the episode when it airs. Then after that, as a comparison, I'll go back and rewatch the story reel. So it's been interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
This is really, honestly, the first one that's been truly different, and that's solely because of the addition of the Padme scene.
Yeah. Well, and Dave Filoni, he talked about that, right? Like we knew what we could do and what we were allowed to, work on and go from there. But he even says in that download, that Clone Wars download, there were certain scenes he could tweak. Obviously, added the Padme thing, switched some things around, and you can see just how he looks at every second of those 22 minutes. And so it's been a neat process. Yeah. I think I need to do the same thing. I got to go back and watch the story reel for the first two now that I've seen these two episodes, but it's kept it fresh for me watching them just, as they're airing. So that's been nice. Obviously the second arc, which is, I guess, not Padme, but Ahsoka in the Coruscant underworld. Obviously, I haven't seen any of that stuff, and there weren't story reels, I don't believe, made of that. And the same thing for the Siege of Mandalore. So instead of it being like 8 episodes that are new, it feels like 12, at least so far for me. That'll be new, so that's a good thing.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
oh yeah. It's great, and it's going to be so much fun to see. To continue how this plays out, because like I said, even though I haven't watched it in forever, so I could jump in and see what happens next, but I don't want to. I want to watch it as it comes out, and it's going to be fun to see where it goes with Echo and where it happens next.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about Skako Minor for a second. This was the city was beautiful, honestly. I really did like the city. It reminded me, and here's going to be my Star Wars reference for the night. It reminded me a lot of, if you've ever watched Star Wars Voyager, one of the officers on that show, Tom Paris, had a holodeck program called Captain Proton, which was basically a ripoff of like Flash Gordon or something like that. The old black and white sci-fi serials, the cheesy ones where it just was so cheesy. It was funny, but the way the city was built reminded me of something straight out of that serial, something like what you would see in Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon or Captain Proton if you're a Star Trek fan. It was great. It had a very Honestly, it almost had a very steampunkish feel to it.
It did. In fact, I was looking at our show notes, and I just wanted to verify, you know, something that you know the city reminded me of. It was the movie Metropolis. I thought it was made in 1934. It's actually 1927. A
Oh wow.
German a German expressionist science fiction drama film directed by Fritz Lang. Um, but yeah, the look of that, like particularly inside um, the chamber where Echo was being held, and we see Wat Tambor in there. At the end, obviously Wat Tambor is out of there. But very much reminded me, like you said, of the old Buck Rogers serials, Flash Gordon, that movie Metropolis. Um, because of when Rex is still outside the door and you see all of a sudden you see Wat Tambor's face appear, kind of evolve. It revolves around and then finally focuses. Same thing with when Admiral Trench contacts Wat Tambor, same kind of process in the visual screen. Those things remind me of Flash Gordon looking at it, and then all of a sudden here comes Ming's face, and it finally materializes. In the what was it? It was in I don't know either. I think in the episode guide it talks about when Padme in episode 1 is talking to the Trade Federation, the Nemoidians. Same thing happens there. Her face kind of revolves around and finally focuses. So those touches in the Phantom Menace in this episode really do harken back to some of those old classics. And so I'm sure other people noticed that, but I thought it was really cool.
Excellent. Yeah, I definitely agree. It does harken back to that, and they did a great job animating this. It was a lot of fun to watch. So with that, we are going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll go ahead and wrap up A Distant Echo. Welcome back, everybody. Aaron and David here. We have been discussing Star Wars: The Clone Wars episode A Distant Echo. Fun episode there. We're just going to go ahead and wrap up the discussion here. David, let's go ahead and get your final thoughts on A Distant Echo.
Yeah, for me, I enjoyed this even more than the first one. There was even more kick butt action by the Bad Batch. I loved it. I mean, even starting with Crosshair instinctively shooting that. What would it be? An arrow that attaches to one of the Caradacs that are flying, and then it allows Hunter to then track where Anakin's going. I thought that was so beyond cool. Obviously, we mentioned it a little bit before. We see the Bad Batch and Rex and Anakin just cut through tons and tons of droids as they get into I guess what's called Perkle City, that floating city above Skako Miners where Wat Tambor is. But as they go up the elevator and start clearing those guys out, it was just so cool to see. As you mentioned just a few minutes ago, I did like seeing the continued tension between Rex and Crosshair. Wasn't expecting it with Hunter as much, but I do get it. I love to see them ultimately help him. I thought it was cool to see Wat Tambor again. We did see him earlier in the Clone Wars. On Ryloth. Yeah, we see him on Ryloth, and we see Mace Windu go there and try to help bring liberty to Ryloth and all that kind of good stuff. But he's a good baddie. Oh my gosh! So I enjoy seeing him. We just mentioned I love seeing the visuals in the control room. Obviously, like I said, reminded me of all the stuff from Metropolis 1927, the Flash Gordons and all those in Episode 1. But just as you mentioned, I did want to come back around to it in my final thoughts and say that when Rex was talking to Echo and when he just starts speaking, I went back to that episode where just before he gets blown up near that shuttle, he's the one trying to help, Anakin and Obi-Wan and other clones to escape the Citadel. And so for him to start talking and picking up right from there was kind of eerie, but also very cool. And I thought about him saying to Rex, he says, you came back for me, and Rex says, yeah.